Hey, welcome to Audio listeners. We're all about breaking down the best ideas from great books.
Want to learn from all those amazing books out there, but you just can't find the time?
That's exactly what we do. We pull the key ideas from the best books on growth and motivation.
So you can boost your personal growth, gain powerful knowledge, and find that daily motivation for free.
Here's the cool part. Every book is a complete playlist, so you can learn from start to finish.
So go check out the playlist section. You're going to find something that helps for sure.
And hey, if you like what we're doing, do us a favor and hit that like button.
You're not going to want to miss what's next, so make sure you subscribe for the latest books.
And one last thing, what book should we cover next? Let us know right down in the comments.
You know, building wealth is a goal pretty much everyone has. But what about keeping it? Today, we're going to dig into the huge difference between getting rich and staying rich. And let me tell you, one is so much harder and way more important than the other. So, let's start with a little thought experiment. Picture the wealthiest, most powerful business leaders you can think of right now. Got 'em? Okay, now imagine that in 25 years, almost every single one of them is completely broke, in prison, or even worse. Sounds totally impossible, right? Well, this exact thing has actually happened before. And that brings us to this powerful, and honestly, kind of scary story from history. It's a tale that just perfectly shows the difference between making a fortune and, actually holding on to it. Okay, so the year is 1923. At the Edgewater Beach Hotel in Chicago, this group of the world's most successful men gets together. I mean, these guys were the titans of their day, the captains of industry, market wizards, literally the top of the food chain. Now, fast forward just 25 years, and the story takes this unbelievably dark turn. Nearly all of their lives had completely, totally fallen apart. And look, the scale of this collapse is just staggering. We're not talking about one or two bad moves. Charles Schwab, the guy who ran a massive steel company, died with nothing. Samuel Insull, president of the biggest utility in the world, died broke. And for the others on this list, it was insanity, prison, or suicide. I mean, these men had reached the absolute peak of the financial world, only to lose every single bit of it. So you have to ask the obvious question. What on earth went wrong? How could the smartest, richest guys of their time end up like this? Now sure, the 1929 market crash and the Great Depression, they definitely played a huge part. But the real problem was something much, much deeper. It all boils down to this one core lesson. Money without financial intelligence is money soon gone. Think about it. It's your intelligence that creates the money in the first place. So if you have the money, but you're missing the knowledge to manage it, well, it's basically a ticking time bomb, just waiting to disappear. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's just some old story from a different era. But nope, this exact same pattern happens over and over and over again, even today. And what it shows us is that most people are actually focused on the wrong thing. The obsession is all about getting rich and, usually, as fast as possible. But here's the twist. Getting the money, that's not even the hardest part. The real challenge, the real game, is learning how to keep it. We see this everywhere, don't we? Just think about all those stories of lottery winners who hit the jackpot only to be right back where they started a couple of years later. Or pro athletes who are making millions at 24, but end up broke and homeless just a decade later. It's the same pattern, just playing out in a different century. There's this one story that really just sticks with me. It's about a young basketball player who, just a year before, had millions. But by the time he was 29, he'd lost everything and had to get a job at a car wash. And get this, he got fired because he refused to take off his championship ring while he was working. He said it was the only thing he had left. That ring, it was a symbol of his past glory, but it sure couldn't pay his bills. And that just brings us to the most crucial point of this whole thing. Real wealth isn't measured by how much money you make, it's measured by how much money you keep, and how many generations your family can keep it after you're gone. So if just making a lot of money isn't the secret, then what is? How do you actually build wealth that's built to last? Well, the answer is all in the foundation. The answer is actually surprisingly simple, though it's definitely not easy. It all comes down to financial literacy. And no, this isn't about some complicated stock-picking algorithm. It's the basic education you need to understand how money actually works so you can build your wealth and, this is the key part, maintain it for the long run. This is the advice that was given to the author of our source material by his rich dad. It's so direct, so simple, and it is profoundly true. This is the secret. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a get-smart-first principle. Okay, to really wrap our heads around why this is so important, let's use a really powerful metaphor. I want you to think about your financial life like you're constructing a building. You've basically got two choices. You can build a massive skyscraper, something that's designed to last for centuries, or you can throw up a simple suburban house. Now, the real difference isn't the size of the building itself, it's what's holding it up from underneath. Think about it. If you're going to build the Empire State Building, what is the very first thing you do? You don't start building up, right? No way. You start by digging a huge, deep hole and pouring an incredibly strong foundation. That foundation is your financial literacy. But what do most people do in their rush to get rich? The exact opposite. They pour this flimsy 6-inch slab of concrete and then immediately try to build a skyscraper right on top of it. They're so focused on making money before they've built any kind of foundation to support it. And what's the inevitable result of that? Well, you don't get the Empire State Building. You get what the author calls the Leaning Tower of Suburbia. It's a structure that might look impressive for a little while, but it's fundamentally unstable. It's just destined to collapse. And that's exactly what happens when you build wealth without a financial education. So, how do we make sure we avoid building that leaning tower? How do we actually apply all this and start building our own financial Empire State Building? Okay, let's just quickly recap the crucial points. First, real wealth isn't about making money, it is about keeping it. Second, any financial success you have without knowledge, it's going to be temporary. Third, your financial literacy is your foundation. And finally, and this one is so important, you have to build that foundation before you start building up. And this all leads to the ultimate takeaway. Money is not your greatest asset. It's not. Your mind, your knowledge, your financial education, that is your greatest wealth. It's the one thing nobody can ever take from you, and it's the tool you're used to build everything else. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. When you really look at your own financial life, what are you building? Are you taking the time to dig that deep hole and pour a solid foundation? Or are you just rushing to build a leaning tower? The choice ultimately is yours. We're always told building wealth is super complicated, right? But what if? What if it all comes down to just one simple rule? A rule that's so basic, most of us just miss it. Well, in the next few minutes, we're going to break down that single idea, and honestly, it could completely change the way you see money forever. Okay, this quote right here, this is pretty much the key to everything we're talking about. It's a bold statement, isn't it? It's basically saying most of us are out there playing the money game, but with the wrong rule book. So stick with me, and we're going to unpack exactly what this means and why it's such a game changer. All right, so where do we even begin? Well, we start with a really powerful lesson in simplicity. See, the main idea here is that the biggest, most important truths about money, they're actually the simplest ones to grasp. And that's what's so wild about this whole thing. It's all about simplicity. You know, we're constantly told that you need these complex, genius-level strategies to build wealth. But what we're looking at here is the complete opposite. The foundation is so simple, so straightforward, that most people just look right past it. Which, of course, leads to the big question, right? If it's really that simple, why isn't everybody rich? And the answer, well, it comes down to a really fundamental and super common misunderstanding of what money is and how it actually works. Yeah, the answer is all about a deep-seated confusion in how we're taught to think about finance. So let's dig into why so many smart, well-educated people get this so completely wrong. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense at first, does it? We go to school, we get degrees, we become smart adults. So how on earth do we miss something so basic? The problem isn't that people aren't smart enough. It's all about how we've been conditioned to think about money. Okay, here's the real kicker. We learn about money from professionals, right? And they use these complex, wordy definitions. And for a smart adult, it can almost feel, demeaning to go back to such a simple idea. But honestly, the biggest hurdle of all is trying to get someone to unlearn something they think they already know. And this really gets to the heart of the problem. Look at this. On one side, you've got your typical dictionary definitions, confusing, all based on words. Then on the other side, you've got this super simple approach. It's not based on words at all. It's based on numbers. And that shift from words to numbers, well, that's what changes everything. So if the words are the problem, what's the solution? It's actually pretty simple. You have to stop trying to define these things with words and instead learn to read the story that the numbers are telling you. This quote just nails it. What defines an asset isn't words, it's numbers. And if you can't read the numbers, you can't tell an asset from a hole in the ground. It's not about memorizing some textbook definition. It's about being able to see the financial story. True financial literacy isn't about big words. It's just about understanding which direction the money is flowing. So how do you read that story? You just need to understand two really basic things. The income statement, that's the money coming in and going out. And the balance sheet, that's what you own and what you owe. It's the relationship between those two. That's where the magic happens. Okay, so this is it. We're at the core concept now. Let's look at the simple, number-based definitions that just cut right through all the confusion. Forget the fancy terms. All that matters is one thing. Which way is the money flowing? This simple picture tells you everything you need to know. See, an asset, it's something you own, so it sits on your balance sheet. It generates cash, and that cash flows into your income column. That's it. That's the whole story of an asset, right there in one simple diagram. And that leads us to the simplest, most powerful definition you'll ever hear. An asset puts money in your pocket. Period. That's all you need to know. Think about it. A rental property that brings in rent each month, a stock that pays you a dividend. If it's putting cash in your pocket, boom, it's an asset. And a liability? Well, you guessed it. It's the exact opposite. A liability takes money out of your pocket. Simple as that. We're talking about your car payment, your mortgage, your credit card debt. Anything that makes cash flow away from you is a liability. And understanding this one simple difference, man, it's everything. So now that we have these crystal clear definitions that are based on numbers, not words, we have a whole new financial foundation to build on. And with this new understanding, we're finally ready for it, the single most important rule for building wealth. So what is it? What is the one single rule that this has all been leading up to? The one thing that could literally change your entire financial future. And here it is. Rule number 1. You must know the difference between an asset and a liability. And then you buy assets. That's it. That's the whole game in one sentence. I know, it sounds almost too simple to be true, right? But this really is the whole secret. It's the only rule you'll ever need. Just think back to that quote from the very beginning. The rich acquire assets. The poor and middle class acquire liabilities that they think are assets. Everything you need to know is packed right into that one idea. So now, the real question comes back to you. With this new super simple definition in mind, take an honest look at your own life. Look at where your money is actually going. What story are your numbers telling? Are you buying things that put money in your pocket? Or are you buying things that take money out of it?
You ever look around and wonder why the rich just seem to get richer while so many other people feel like they are stuck on a financial treadmill? Well, the answer might just lie in a single, really powerful idea from the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that idea is cash flow. Today, we're going to break it down visually so you can see exactly how it all works.
I mean, does this sound familiar? You get a raise at work, you're putting in longer hours, but at the end of the day, you don't feel like you're actually getting ahead. You're just running in place. It's an incredibly common feeling, and it's the exact problem we're going to unpack right now.
And here's the core idea, the big twist from the book. Getting more money isn't the solution. In fact, it can actually make the problem worse. Think of your money like a magnifying glass for your financial habits. If your pattern is to spend everything you make, well, a bigger paycheck just means bigger spending. This whole cycle, you've probably heard it called the rat race. For today, let's call it the money treadmill. You see, for so many smart, hardworking people, the real issue isn't about their ability to earn a living. It's a lack of financial literacy. It's not about how much you make, it's about what you do with what you make. The whole goal is to learn how to make your money start working for you instead of you always working for it.
So how in the world do you get off this treadmill? Well, the solution is, believe it or not, surprisingly simple. It all starts with understanding two very basic rules of money. And here it is. This is the single most important thing to get. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. The book argues that this is the only rule you really need to know. If you want to build wealth, you have to focus your life on acquiring assets. It's really that simple. Okay, so how do you tell the difference between the two? Well, you look at the cash flow. And cash flow is really just the story of how money moves. The diagrams we're about to look at, they tell that story visually. They show you exactly where the money is going.
Now, what's so great about this picture is how clearly it tells the story of a liability. See that arrow? It starts in your liabilities column, say a car loan, and then it flows out through your expenses as a car payment. It is a one-way street for your money, right out the door.
So let's see how this plays out in the first of 3 financial paths we're going to look at. This is path number 1, the straight line, which represents a poor person's cash flow.
Just look at the path the money takes here. Income from a job comes in, and then it goes straight back out to cover all the essential stuff: taxes, rent, food. There's nothing left over to put into that asset column. The money is basically just passing through. All right, on to the second path. Now, this is the one that might look, a little uncomfortably familiar to a lot of us. It's the cash flow pattern of the middle class, or what we're calling the liability loop. Okay, let's trace this arrow with me. So, income comes in from a job, but instead of going straight out, a big chunk of it goes down into the liability column to buy stuff. And those liabilities, they then create more expenses. You got mortgage payments, credit card debt, which then takes even more money out. It's a loop, and it's what keeps people feeling stuck. And yep, these are the usual suspects you'll find in that liability column. And the tricky part is, we're all taught that getting these things, a house, a nice car, is what success looks like. But from a pure cash flow perspective, all they do is take money out of our pockets every single month. So, what's the alternative? What's the way out? Well, this brings us to our final path. This is the one that doesn't just manage money, it actively generates wealth. This is the wealth engine.
Now, this picture shows the whole game changer. Look where the money flows. They direct their money to the asset column first. They're buying things like real estate, stocks, bonds, intellectual property. And then that asset column starts generating its own income, which flows right back up to the top. Their money is literally making more money.
This chart just lays it all out, side by side. The poor use their money for expenses. The middle class use their money to buy liabilities. The wealthy use their money to buy assets. And that one single decision, where your money goes first, is pretty much what determines your financial future.
So now that we've seen these 3 completely different paths, the real question has to turn back to us. Because every single one of us right now is living out one of these stories with our own money.
And it's so important to remember this. Your bank statement, your budget, it's not just a boring collection of numbers. It's a narrative. It's telling a story about your habits, your priorities, and your choices, month after month. And that right there is the ultimate takeaway from all of this. The goal isn't just about getting a bigger paycheck. It's about learning to direct every single one of those paychecks toward your asset column first. It's a total shift in thinking, from buying things that cost you money to buying things that make you money. By understanding these patterns, you now have the power to actually decide which path you're on. You are the author of your own financial story. So the only question left is, what story are you going to choose to write?
You know, we've all heard it a million times. Buying a house is the cornerstone of the American dream. It's supposed to be our biggest asset. But what if that's not the whole story? What if, for a lot of people, that dream home is actually a financial trap in disguise? Let's dig in and see why the path we're all told to follow might be leading us completely astray. It's a story we all recognize. Picture a bright, young, ambitious couple. They've done everything right. They went to good schools, they've got good jobs, and now they're ready to build that perfect life they've always imagined together. So they follow the script, right? Get educated, build those careers, combine their incomes, and then, the big one, save up and buy that dream house where they can raise a family. On the surface, everything is going exactly to plan. I mean, they're doing everything they're supposed to do. They're following the exact path that society tells us leads to success and security. They're not making mistakes, they're playing by the rules. The problem is, they might have been handed the wrong rule book. And this, right here, is where the dream starts to go a little sideways. All their hard work pays off, their incomes are climbing, and they finally buy that house. But instead of feeling financial freedom, they find themselves stuck in this race they just can't seem to win. So as they climb that corporate ladder and their paychecks get bigger and bigger, something else is growing right alongside their income, something that's quietly and relentlessly eating away at their newfound wealth. Here's the first piece of the puzzle. You know how it goes. As their income goes up, so do their expenses. That bigger salary leads to a bigger house, maybe a new car, new furniture to fill up the house. The money comes in one door and flows right back out the other. And it gets worse. A lot of times, working harder to earn more leads to something called bracket creep. So you get that big raise you worked so hard for, but whoops, it bumps you into a higher tax bracket. That just means the government gets to take an even bigger slice of your earnings. You're running faster and faster just to stay in the same place. And just like that, the trap is fully set. The house comes with a mortgage, the new lifestyle brings on credit card debt, and all of a sudden their liabilities column is overflowing, while their assets column is, well, pretty much empty. They're trapped. So here's the real kicker. The problem isn't that they aren't making enough money. Seriously, more money wouldn't solve their problem. The issue is a lack of financial literacy. They just don't understand how to use the money they already have. And this brings us to the absolute core lesson here. The one fundamental misunderstanding that keeps so many people stuck in the rat race for their entire lives. And it all comes down to two very, very simple words. See, the problem isn't really the debt or the taxes. Those are just symptoms. The real underlying issue is their financial education. They've been taught to completely misunderstand the nature of money itself. So let's ask the question that started this whole thing. Is your house really an asset? Now, conventional wisdom, what everyone tells you, is a loud yes. But if you ask someone who's truly financially literate, you might get a very different answer. Okay, and the definitions here, they are shockingly simple. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. That's it. It is not more complicated than that. This simple idea is the absolute foundation of understanding money. So many of us think if I could just earn more, all my problems would be solved. But if your spending habits are the issue, a bigger income just gives you a bigger shovel to dig with. The very first step to getting out of a financial hole is to just stop digging. To really let this sink in, let's look at it through a powerful example. The story of two father figures. One, we'll call him Poor Dad, was highly educated, but always struggled with money. The other, Rich Dad, was a school dropout who turned out to be a financial genius. Now get this, they are looking at the exact same item, a house. But these two dads see completely different things. Poor Dad looks at it and sees his greatest asset. Rich Dad looks at it and sees a liability. And the reason for this huge difference comes down to one simple thing: cash flow. Let's follow the money, shall we? Your house comes with a mortgage, right? That's a liability. And that liability creates monthly expenses: the mortgage payment, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, you name it. All of these things are continuously taking money out of your pocket. It's a cash drain, not a cash source. And it's not just the cash draining out every month. Think about the huge opportunity costs. Tying up all your money in a house means you lose precious time where other, real assets could have been growing. You lose capital that you could have invested somewhere else. And maybe the biggest loss of all, you lose the education that comes from actively investing. You never learn how to be a smart investor because you have no money left to invest with. So here's what the end game looks like. Poor Dad's financial statement shows a life where income comes in and, boof, it's immediately eaten up by expenses and liabilities. It's a constant struggle, like running on a treadmill. Rich Dad's statement, on the other hand, shows a life dedicated to one thing: building an asset column that generates more than enough income to cover all his expenses. That is the path to real financial freedom. So, how do you break this cycle? It's not about some get-rich-quick scheme. It starts with something much more fundamental. It starts with questioning the very advice you've always been given. It starts with self-knowledge. You know, there is an old Japanese legend about three treasures: the sword, which represents the power of weapons, the jewel, which is the power of money, and the mirror, representing the power of self-knowledge. And the legend always says that the mirror was the most treasured of them all. And that really gets to the heart of why we get trapped, doesn't it? It's fear. The fear of being different, of being criticized, of standing out. That fear makes us conform instead of question. So we just mindlessly repeat what we've been told: play it safe, your home is your biggest investment. We follow the crowd instead of looking in the mirror and asking, wait a second, does this actually make sense for me? And this brings us right back to where we started. Remember that highly educated, successful couple? Their story proves this powerful point. You can have all the degrees in the world, be a massive success in your career, and still be completely, utterly, financially illiterate. So the final question I'll leave you with is this. When it comes to your own finances, Are you just accepting the common wisdom without question just because that's what everyone else does? Or are you willing to look in the mirror, trust your own wisdom over your fears, and challenge the script you've been handed? The answer to that question could change your financial life forever. All right, let's dive into a core idea from Rich Dad Poor Dad that might just change the way you look at your paycheck forever. We're talking about the rat race, and more importantly, the one simple rule you need to know to actually escape it. You ever feel like this? You're on a financial treadmill. You get a raise, you put in more hours, you're working harder than ever, but somehow you end up in the exact same spot, maybe even a little further behind. Well, that feeling, that trap, it has a name, and just understanding it is the very first step to changing your entire financial story. And that name is the rat race. It's the cycle that so many of us fall into, and it's all driven by a really simple but kind of dangerous financial pattern. And here is the core of the problem. Your wages go up. Awesome, right? But what happens almost immediately? Well, for most people, their expenses rise right along with it. A bigger house, a nicer car, more stuff. Your income goes up, but so do your debts and bills. You're basically running faster, but the finish line hasn't moved an inch. So this really forces you to ask a tough question. When you're stuck in this cycle, working harder and harder, who are you really working for? Who's actually benefiting from all that extra effort? The hard truth is, before a single dollar of that raise actually works for you, it goes to work for other people. First, your company. They get more of your time and energy. Second, the government, which takes a bigger piece of the pie through taxes. And third, the bank, which is more than happy to give you a bigger mortgage or a larger car loan. This diagram breaks it down perfectly. Your salary comes in as income, but where does it go? It flows right back out. It goes to the government as taxes, and it goes to the bank for your mortgage and other debts. You end up working for everyone else first. Okay, so how do you break out of this? How do you finally start working for yourself first? Well, it all boils down to one simple golden rule. And once you get this, really get it, everything changes. Here's the first half of that rule. An asset is anything that puts money into your pocket. That's it. It's that simple. Think of it like a little money-making machine that you own, one that works for you around the clock. And of course, the flip side is a liability. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket, month after month. It's a money-draining machine that you have to keep feeding. Now, this is so much more than a vocabulary lesson. This is a complete mindset shift. The most important rule is just knowing the difference between the two. And once you see the world through this lens, the path forward becomes crystal clear. You stop focusing on just getting a bigger paycheck, and you start focusing on buying income-generating assets. Depending on what you focus on, assets or liabilities, your money flows in two totally different directions. And that leads to two completely different lives. Let's see what that looks like. The difference here is just, wow, it's stark. On the left, you see the blueprint for wealth. Your income is used to buy assets, that little money tree there, and those assets generate even more income. But on the right, that's the rat race in a nutshell. More income just gets chained to more liabilities, which create more expenses, and that keeps you trapped. See, this creates this incredible positive feedback loop. Your asset column grows, which produces more income, which allows you to buy even more assets. Your money starts working for you, building its own momentum. That right there is the engine of wealth creation. So this brings us to a really different way of thinking about the end goal. I want you to forget the term net worth for just a second. The source material gives us a much more practical and I think powerful way to measure what it really means to be wealthy. This quote from R. Buckminster Fuller just reframes everything. Wealth isn't a number in a bank account. It's a measure of time. It's a measure of freedom. The real question is, if you stopped working today, how long could you survive? So the true metric for wealth is actually some pretty simple math. You just take the cash flow your assets generate each month and you compare it to your total monthly expenses. That number tells you, in real time, how financially independent you are. Let's make it super concrete. Say your assets are generating $1,000 a month in cash flow, but your bills and expenses are $2,000. Well, your wealth is half a month. You could survive for about 15 days. The goal isn't just to have $1 million. It's to make that survival number grow. And right there, that's the finish line. You are financially free the moment your monthly cash flow from your assets is enough to cover all of your monthly expenses. At that point, your job becomes a choice, not a necessity. And that is what true freedom is all about. So let's just boil this all down. It really comes down to 3 different mindsets. The rich, they buy assets. The poor often only have expenses they struggle to cover. And the middle class, this is the crucial distinction. They often buy liabilities that they think are assets. And telling the difference is everything. So it all comes down to this one last really personal question. I want you to look at your own finances and forget your paycheck for just a minute. What are you building today that will put money in your pocket tomorrow and next month and for years to come? Because the answer to that question, well, that's what's going to define your path out of the rat race.